actually graduated from Emory back in 2005 with my master's in public health. So it's just really exciting to be back to talk to you about what we're doing. So a little bit about us. We are originally from Africa, if you couldn't tell by the names. We were born in Cameroon, and we are born to a mother who is Cameroonian and a father who is American. And we grew up in a life full of culture. We embraced our own cultures at home, but we also had an opportunity to travel to many different countries and study there and live there and work there. Like countries like Germany, Namibia, South Africa, Antigua, Jamaica. So for us, we've always been exposed to different concerns, not only in the United States, but also around the world. And the type of issues that we were concerned about were water scarcity, human trafficking, HIV/AIDS, and access to education. But before we get started, we want to know, and we want to ask you all a question. When you think of young leaders, who do you think of? And you can just yell out any name that comes to mind.
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg, that's a good one.
Cory Booker.
Cory Booker, yeah, that's a good one. Anyone else? Well, the few names that you named are all people who are fairly young. They're under 50 years old. But most importantly, they had something in their lives that made them want to act. So today, we are here to answer that question. How do we get youth to tackle issues to change their own communities? Now, Usa and I started Focal Point Global to address that very question. We wanted to empower our peers, but we also wanted to empower the next generation of leaders to identify and address critical issues that are harming our global communities. So Focal Point Global is really focused on connecting youth to have discussions about global issues, and then we link them to local organizations in their own communities to complete projects to address those issues. Now, Focal Point Global, what we do a little bit differently than, say, your average global youth organization, is that we focus on youth leaders from underserved communities. But we also make sure that each international connection is done without anyone leaving their city, their state, their country. No one has to travel to New York, and New York is a pretty cool city. No one has to travel to Paris or Geneva to have a formal meeting. We engage youth using methods that youth use now. And that is, we use modern social media tools like Skype, Google Hangout, to have them illustrate Focal Point Global's motto. And that is, think globally, act locally. Now for us, it took that motto a while for us to evolve, for it to evolve for our organization. I know it started really for us before Focal Point Global was even an idea. Usa and I both worked and lived in Southern Africa. I worked in Namibia in 2006 with Centers for Disease Control and with Namibia's Ministry of Health, helping them manage their HIV/AIDS program there. At the time, Namibia had a population of about 2 million. But they had an HIV/AIDS rate, prevalence rate, of nearly 20%. That's a devastating stat. However, I think what really had me in awe was seeing young people determined and eager to make a difference in their own communities. When I was in a site visit in northern Namibia, I was able to encounter young people, young peer educators, ready to go door to door and speak to their neighbors, to their aunts, their uncles, their family members about HIV/AIDS. educating them about risk, educating them about ways in which to protect themselves. But they also talked to HIV/AIDS positive people who needed information about treatment, but also needed support and counseling to help them just get through the day. For me, that was really inspirational. I got to see how young people could really care about their communities, could really engage their friends, their family, in order to fight a disease that was killing their communities. Also, I learned the power of peer education.
Well, I also was in Namibia. I was in South Africa. And I was actually in Pretoria, which is right outside of Johannesburg, which is in the middle of the country, if you don't know. And I was tackling another issue, and that was human trafficking. And at the time, human trafficking did not get the same exposure as it's getting today. So it was very under the radar. I worked for the International Organization for Migration, and I worked in the counter-trafficking unit. And my job required me to answer phone calls from the hotline, visit embassies, go to safe houses where victims were, and occasionally go into brothels to find these victims. So one moment sticks out for me the most. It was one time when we got a tip that there were 4 girls who might have been trafficked into South Africa, and it was outside of Joburg. And so when I arrived to the brothel, I found girls from Thailand, Indonesia, and other parts of African countries. And they were completely scared. They were dressed in bikini tops, short shorts, and heavy makeup. You could see in their face they were petrified by the sexual abuse that they encountered, and they were confused as to why it was happening to them. But in the midst of this horrific incident, this horrific stage in their lives, I saw strength in these young women. I saw young girls, as young as 12 years old, be a support system for one another. They gave each other strength to get through this horrible, horrible incident. But it wasn't until we came back to the United States where Focal Point Global actually was created. We were actually sitting in our parents' home, and we read a Washington Post article. And the headline said, HIV/AIDS rate in DC hits 3%. Now, that is not as high as 20%, like Namibia. However, Washington, D.C. is a city, not a country. Washington, D.C. is in the United States, and the United States is an affluent country filled with resources and medical treatment. Washington, D.C. has a rate that is comparable to cities in developing countries. And if that does not scare you, this disease affects people like you, between the ages of 18 and 40. So after reading that article, we were petrified, and we realized that it's great to have all these global experiences, but we need to do something to help our own community. And that was the day Focal Point Global was born. Here we have a young lady who is sitting in front of a laptop. This is 2010, and this is the beginning of our first project. It's titled U.S. Namibia HIV Education Initiative. This young lady is from Mandesa, and that is a township right outside of Swakopmund, Namibia, which is a coastal city in Namibia. She and her peers were waiting for a virtual meeting with her counterparts in Baltimore, Maryland. Our project brought together 2 groups of young people to discuss HIV/AIDS and also cultural norms that may influence the way in which
they see HIV, they tackle or address HIV/AIDS in their own communities. They were able to work together, speak, communicate, and come up with projects to take back to their communities. The U.S. students were able to develop clubs. They wanted to go back to their schools and have HIV awareness clubs. Because in the U.S., for some reason, in 2010, it was still taboo. In Namibia, HIV/AIDS, everyone knows about it. However, prevention is key there. Still, behavioral changes are important in order to decrease the rate. So they decided they wanted to create a play in order to perform in their communities to encourage people to be proactive. Now, instead of me continuing to talk about their experience, I wanted to share two quotes from two participants from that very project. Baltimore youth participant said, "Learning about our global HIV issue and seeing how it affects different cultures in different ways, I feel inspired to inform others about this cause." Her counterpart in Namibia stated, "There are quite a lot of solutions. We can start campaigns to educate people." As you can see, they were definitely aware. They definitely enjoyed talking to one another. But also, what was clear was that they wanted to be proactive. They were ready to make a change. They wanted to be the leaders in their own communities to fight this disease. So Us and I looked at this situation and we said, you know what? We have global leaders here. We have young leaders here. What if they could work with organizations already in existence in their own communities to fight critical issues just like HIV/AIDS?
And that brings us to our U.S. Cameroon Child Trafficking Awareness Project. During this project, we were trying to find cities in which we could work in. And we wanted to work in a city where sex trafficking was a huge issue. And after doing our research, we found out Atlanta is a hub. So that means right outside the safe community in which Emory sits, sex trafficking is a huge issue. And we wanted to make sure that we were educating Atlanta teens about this issue. So we connected them to teens in Bamenda, Cameroon. And Cameroon also has a trafficking issue. But the issue is different. The issue is labor trafficking. And labor trafficking is basically being a slave. You are kidnapped from your homes or fooled to think that there's better opportunity elsewhere, and you are forced to do manual labor. So we connected these Atlanta teens to teens in Bamenda, and they were able to discuss what trafficking was, how culture plays a part, and why it's an issue. And also, they were able to speak to survivors, peers, their age, 17, 18, 19 years old, who were trafficked at the age of 12 and 13 into sexual exploitation or labor exploitation. And it's not enough for us to talk about it. I'm going to show you a video of an Atlanta teen who participated in this particular project, and she will give her own insight.
I came in thinking that I was going to learn about different people in just the United States, but I actually learned about different people in Africa and the United States and how they can have different circumstances, but they can both be similar in different ways, and how it's so close that it can happen to anybody of any color, of any race, any religion, and that everybody should just like watch out and just have to pray and just like keep everyone aware of different things.
Now this team and her counterparts took what they learned, and they also worked with local organizations here in Atlanta. So they worked with Street Grace, and Street Grace is an organization that helps trafficked victims assimilate back into the community. And they were able to collect clothing and money to help these students get back into school, find or create identification that was stolen from them once they were trafficked, and actually have money to survive. Their Cameroonian counterparts were actually connected to GLOA. And GLOA is also a trafficking organization, or an organization that works with trafficking victims. And they were able to not only help teens assimilate back into their homes and to their societies, but they were also able to create campaigns and pamphlets and go door to door and educate their peers about what trafficking looks like and how not to become a victim. So based off of these two projects, the HIV/AIDS project and our Child Trafficking Awareness Project, we realized that young people are resilient and they're powerful and they can make a difference. But it's not enough for us to know. We want to make sure that young people know that they themselves can do it. They themselves can create change in their own communities. And that's why we are here today. So we just hope that we leave you with our motto: think globally, act locally. Thank you.
Any questions for us?
Yes. What is another project that you're planning to work on, and could you use some help in any way?
Yes. Our next project will be actually next year in April. We will be connecting Gambian students with Namibian students to address HIV/AIDS. This is our first intra-African project, which would be great for us because Africans really need to connect with one another, and you don't see that a lot. In addition to that, the Gambia is a Muslim country, and Namibia is a Christian country. So that will be a very interesting pairing as well. And yes, we do need help. So we can definitely talk after this, and we welcome that. We definitely welcome help anyway. Yes?
Two questions. Do you plan to expand beyond U.S. and Africa in the future for your projects?
Yes, we do.
We do. But right now, we want to focus on the two projects that we already have, and we want to expand. Right now, the first project, we had about 10 students, and our second project, which was the trafficking project, we had about 30 students. So we're trying to scale up. So once we are able to scale up to about 100, then that's when we will expand into other parts of the world, hopefully Asian countries as well.
And also, you have quite a number of young politicians coming through the ranks these days. Do you have any thoughts on how your work may inform policy in the future?
Well, we hope that through our work, they realize how important these issues are. We understand that politicians act and behave and pass policy depending on the politics that are going on. So we hope that any work that we do makes an impact on the communities, and they can see that youth have a voice and youth really care about these issues. Any more questions?
I think.
Okay.
Have an easy question. Just out of curiosity, how are you recruiting your students?
We actually work with local youth organizations. A big part of what we do is collaboration. So we're not reinventing the wheel, we're just bringing people together to work together to have a bigger impact. So we work, in Namibia, we work with Mundesa Youth Opportunities, which is a after-school youth program. And in Baltimore, we worked with Baltimore Educational Scholarship Trust, which is a citywide organization that provides resources to underserved youth.
In Atlanta, we worked with Street Race, as I mentioned, but we also worked with Young Fit and Fly, which was an organization, it was like an after-school organization for female girls. And in Cameroon, we worked with GLOA, and GLOA had kids who were already a part of their program, and they were really willing to talk to American students about this issue.
The two of you are to be commended for having such a great vision. In addition to that, the issue that you have with both issues, but especially the one with human trafficking, is so crucial to the hub that is here in Atlanta. And I know that your work requires a lot of resources. Do you have a web address that we can reach out to you to serve as volunteers, financial resources, or a listing of whatever type of resources you need?
No, we do. Our website is www.focalpointglobal.org. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, as it's essential for us to be. So we're on Twitter. We're at FPG Global. If you just Google Focal Point Global and Facebook, it will come up. And on our website, we have a button that says donate. So it's easy, it's through a PayPal account, and it's tax deductible. So it shouldn't be a problem. If you're interested in volunteering, we also have an email that you can email us.
Right.
It's volunteer@focalpointglobal.org. And we could use all the volunteers possible, especially as we are going into our third project. And we're actually having a fundraiser next year in Washington, D.C. So we're looking for people to help out with the fundraiser, get the word out, and also help out with the upcoming project. Any other questions?
Hi, do you guys have a program for the college student, grad student that may not be able to recognize human trafficking like we are in Atlanta? And I personally, like you said, I wouldn't be able to recognize that. And I feel like that is, the issue with my heart. So do you guys offer programs for the young adults?
Currently we don't offer programs like that, but we are willing to do workshops. Recently we did workshops with Plan International, with youth from around the world about human trafficking and how to identify it and ways in which to address it. So we're willing to do that for older young adults. So. Any more questions?
I was wondering, just personally, what is the most difficult aspect of all of this for the two of you? And then on the flip side, what's the most rewarding part of this for both of you?
Well, I have to say the most difficult, it's really not losing sight of why we started it. Because once you start a nonprofit, you are so in love with the cause. However, you realize very quickly it's a business too. So you want to make sure that you don't get so lost in the business aspect of running a nonprofit, and you still stay true to why you started it. So just finding that balance. What about you?
I would say the same thing. I think what I love about Focal Point Global is that we get to work with so much amazing ideas, but also so many amazing people from around the world. We've been able to meet some extraordinary young leaders that I truly believe that are going to really change their communities, and that's so rewarding for us. Yeah.
Any more questions? Well, we thank you for coming out and hearing us speak. We hope that our cause resonated with you all.